Welcome to the Neuro-Pitch Podcast, where we ask industry leaders about their secrets to sales, influence, and persuasion. And since I've met this man, I'm so excited to have him here on this podcast because he is a versatile virtuoso. He is a master of many. It's Craig Keegan, and we're going to have, I believe, already a very, very fun episode. Craig, to introduce yourself, because I love this story and I think it tells everything you need to know about you. Tell us a story about your driveway.
Oh no. Well, first, got to say, love the title, love the best. Always a good way to start. So, I don't know if I should have ever told you this one. Okay, imagine this: a block of three townhouses on the left. Own the far one down the bottom left corner. Driveway on the right hand side. So go up and down, pull in left into the carports. So what happens in Australia is we've got body corporate fees, and that means that each of the people within a group of housing has to pay a fee to upkeep the driveway, upkeep the fences and the mailbox. And it's pretty boring. So, what do you think of the idea of rat-a-tat-tat going next door and saying, hey, Mr. Neighbour, uh, do you like paying body corporate fees? Well, no, I don't. Well, how about what I do is I will take care of all the body corporate stuff for you, and all you have to do, pay me $5,000, and I'll take care of it for you. Go to the next door neighbour, do the same thing there. So now, not only have I saved body corporate fees myself, but also got $10,000 in the pocket. So now I've got this driveway. So the next door neighbour puts up a big poster to say, hey, here's developing. So rat-a-tat-tat on the door to the next door neighbour. So what are you doing? You're building some properties here. Yep. So just a question for you, because just wanted to know, do you get paid by the size of the properties, or the size of the houses, or do you get paid just for the properties? He says, oh no, it's the size that's important. So get paid per square metre. Oh, right, okay. So if if you had bigger, more land and a bigger place to build, would you get paid more for properties? Oh, yeah. Okay. Hmm, okay. Well, it just happens. I've got the driveway next door. What if you didn't have to put a driveway in and you could use this driveway instead? Would that give you more land to build property? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So how about I lease the driveway for 99? Get paid from him, and then for the three townhouses he's putting on there as well, positive income driveway for the next 99 years. Bingo. What do you think of that one for a concept?
And I think this is the best comprehension you can have about a character being so creative that he can walk up to anyone and be like, okay, you're gonna pay me $5,000, you're gonna pay me $5,000, and you can rent this for the next 99 years and not only get away with it like a freaking champion, but having a cash positive driveway. Um, so kudos.
Only, yeah, only one I know
When I first heard this story, I was already very, very impressed because it shows a lot of not only creativity, but being a good negotiator at the end of the day. Because asking them what is what they need, giving them what they essentially asking what they want, giving them what they need is the fundamentals of selling in my belief system. Um, So tell me, because I know you did a lot of different things over the last years, um, and not in the terms of, oh, I think I'm doing this. Oh no, this isn't working. I think I'm doing this. You did quite a lot in terms of like real estate. Um,
Yes,
how
absolutely.
how did you end up in real estate and then transitioned into mergers and acquisitions?
Well, the real estate is more an after 5 o'clock type event. So realised that investing was something that you had to do. If you can't get ahead in life unless you invest. So the real estate's sort of the after five thing in the beginning. And I went away, I did an extensive number of training courses, came across a guy who taught me creativity, taught me language. How, and I was working in IT at the time. And within a year of working with this gentleman, and I doubled my income in IT by changing the language that I use, changing the way that I deal with people, doing exactly what you were talking about before, understanding their issues and then their needs, and then achieving those needs for them, rather than just doing, oh, that's this issue, it's not my issue, keep on moving. So that was the starting point. Then I got into, I'm a very curious person. I like to know how things work. So I became a conveyancer because I figured if you are doing property, you're going to be buying and selling, so you need to know about conveyancing. And I don't like being told stuff and not knowing whether it's true or not. Little red light in the forehead. So I I needed to know, just needed to know. So when I became a conveyancer, what about why I became a mortgage broker? Then, of course, you talk about negotiations. Then I had to become a life coach as well, didn't I? So that I could learn how to deal with people. So the accumulation of these things, really, and it's all about growth of the human, becoming of a human being, really, developing as a human being. You're brought up one way. You're told go to school, get a job, or get an education, get a good job. Well, I did all that, but nobody told me about the other side of life. So I had to learn that by myself. So I also went away and became qualified on issuing shares and listing organisations on the secondary stock market as well, because investing other people's money, you needed to know. So learned a few things here and there, and that's how I got into the property. Then became a property consultant, a creative property consultant, and started working with people on that side of things. These days, not so much. Again, the property side led me to other inquiries. Mergers and acquisitions actually came out of the IT side of things because I was still conducting my IT business as well. So that actually came out of IT. I started doing a number of large mergers and acquisitions, 14 manufacturing companies in 3 different countries around the world. So that was pretty exciting. That's my first really large $1 billion deal. And then, ironically, one that I did for Bega Cheese here in Australia was another 14 factories. I don't know what the magic number there is, 14, but anyway. And it was a demerger and merger to Bega Cheese. And I'd actually worked for this company several names ago, as it turned out, and I didn't realize until I was in there looking at it. But I described in the initial conversation, this particular project was a steam train going down a hill without brakes and a brick wall at the other end. It was a train wreck just happening. So 6 weeks in to get 14 factories across 2 DCs, and best of all, they had robots. That was exciting. So yes, that particular one was just insane. The first 2 days, I wrote for two major streams, over 300 lists or 300 tasks per list for each of those major streams and allocated them out. It was just so much to be done. At the go, no go, 1 minute before the go, no go meeting, it's a no go. So we only just made it to get this across. The penalty for that particular one per month was $2 million penalty if we did not get it across.
Wow.
Yeah, they were highly motivated. Highly motivated to get it across. So yes, that was a good one. Since then, I've done some aged care facilities as well. That's been good fun. I was given 10 days. I was promised 20 days, but the lawyers chewed up 10. So I was given 10 days to get 5 sites, independent sites, across to the mothership, the major organisation. That was exciting. And again, it was best efforts. It was not pretty at all. Not pretty, but it took a little while to clean up the mess on that one. A few months to clean up that mess on that one because we just had to get it across. Did that and it worked. So yes, the thing that I like about mergers and acquisitions is that it covers every single part of a business. It covers the personnel, the HR, payroll, finances, property, security, IT. Every component needs to be dealt with and needs to be considered. And though it's a financial transaction, it's always a people transaction. You've got to understand the people, because if you lose people, and you do lose people, you lose about 20 to 25% of staff during a merger and acquisition. But if you lose people, it costs you money to pay them out. And that means that the deal loses profitability. And then you have to go and recruit more staff, and that costs you more money. So you don't want to lose staff. So it is people, and we have to keep that in mind all the way through. But if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a question. The biggest thing in this is, with mergers and acquisitions, it's the initial conversation. It's okay, do you want to sell? Do you want to buy? Under what conditions would you want to sell? Under what conditions do you want to buy? There's that conversations backwards and forwards. And from a sales perspective, that would be something that would be ideal for you. How do you see that negotiation, that initial negotiation yourself?
So we have a first one that ever guest asked me a question. I think
You're the expert on this subject.
I'm not shy from a challenge, so I'm able to take it. No, I think for the most part, it always comes down not only to people but the general emotions. So I think you can either approach it with 2 ways. Way number one is you have a feeling they wanna sell, and you can just say it straight out the back, be honest and straight about it. I think more general conversation is ask them what they still want to do in their lives, and looking for, okay, and what about family time? Okay, and what do you want to do then? Okay, you want to sit on a beach, hanging around, just drinking cocktails from a coconut. Okay, cool. And how do you want to do this with your business? I don't know. Oh, okay.
And that's it, isn't it? It comes down to people every single time. And having those people skills, that ability to be able to talk with them and relate to them. You mentioned emotion. Probably the biggest thing there is the name of the organisation. If you're taking over an organisation, changing the name of that organisation, that brings up big emotions in people. And that's a no-no. You should never mention changing the name of the organisation, because that is very likely to turn them off, because that name is a family issue. It's their grandfathers worked on this, and it's very emotional to them.
Yeah, I think especially if you look on the side of, okay, there are people sitting there. At the end of the day, it always comes down to humans talking to humans. Of course, numbers and everything else, it's important. We're not gonna dismiss this, but if you have the initial conversation, the process throughout, the end, the selling, everything comes down again to how good are you with communicating to other people. And since you mentioned now the emotions, how do you handle this in an ongoing conversation if the emotions go a bit south? So maybe there was some talking about name changes. Now it's no, we have to keep the name. That's important for me and everything. How can you handle someone who is in a not so happy state, um, to bring them back to the table, especially if they are already on the verge of leaving?
I'll give you two different ways on that one. The first one is we've got a program for that. And that line is about giving security to them. They understand, okay, I, as the buyer, am aware of the issue, understand the issue, and have experienced the issue. And so much so, we've actually developed a program for it. So happy to go through that with you. Now, that program may not have been developed, and you may quickly go out the back and spend the night putting something together, but that's okay. You understand their concern. You've acknowledged their concern. And that's what's important at the time. So it's not just fobbing them off. It's we have a program for that. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second response to that is I'm going to go back to what you said. Go back to why are they doing this? What was their initial reason? And take the conversation back to that level and move forward again. Do a retake, basically, and replay it and change the conditions. Groundhog Day, perfect example. Go back, reset, and then start again and try something different. If that doesn't work, go back, reset. And then if you can't get through, then maybe it shouldn't happen at all. Maybe it's time to say, okay, this has been great. Let's stay in touch, and do stay in touch with them. 6 months' time, something else might happen. And if you've continued the lines of communication and you've continued to add value at every step, then they might come back to you in 6 months' time. You just don't know. So always keep the lines of communications open. But that reset and that security of got a program for that. That's the key. You need to be confident within yourself and give them that confidence.
I wanna dive in a bit more on the we have a program for that, because I think a lot of the times people, and this is now coming from the perspective who knows especially the European market and especially the German-speaking region. In the German-speaking region, if you tell someone you sell it first and then you build it later, they lose their minds. Because in their head, it's no, we can't do this. We have to have, like, we have to have testimonials, and I can't just take money and then build it. It doesn't make sense. I have to, it's so
Yep.
so severe, the damage in the brain in this area, that I think for a lot of people it's very challenging to really double down on themselves, saying, hey, I can fix this and I know I can. So what was a time when you maybe built a program and in the process you felt like, okay, this is getting out of hand. I have to maybe reschedule. I have to change something. Did you ever have this happen, or did it always just went smoothly?
Nothing ever goes smoothly. Nothing in life ever goes smoothly. There's always curves and things that need to be addressed. Well, I'll start off by saying I used this exact strategy today in a conversation with someone. And she said, well, sorry, actually the tables were turned. She said, you should have a program for that. And she gave me what I needed. So I'm literally going to put a program together for her and deliver it back to her because it was a good idea. Okay, now to answer your question, when did I have it? Okay, yes, I'll go back to a recent one where with this aged care centre that I was doing, and you can lay things out perfectly, and the business has agreed on this. This application is going in during this period. This is a dependency. You've got this, and this. Well, the payroll system doesn't integrate properly because in ours, the current one, you need to actually have an employee to connect into the payroll system. But we can't have employees because we don't actually take possession of the employees until they sign a new work contract, and we can't do that until a later date. So now the payroll system doesn't work, which means the credit card system no longer works because all the blocks that have been lined up have just fallen. The dominoes have fallen and nothing is going to happen. So what do? Well, you go back and you say, okay, what can we do today? Leaving that aside, that obviously isn't something that we're going to be able to achieve. What can we do? And readjust something else, because obviously that timeline, that row of dominoes is going to fall, but not today. So what can we go back and what can we do in the meantime? You can't do the impossible. You just need to focus on what you can do at the time. Let me tell you my 4 rules, if that's okay. This is how I work with people. Rule number 1, tell me what you can do. Rule number 2, tell me what you can't do. And that's okay, because there's always someone out there that can. Rule number 3, never lie to me or my customer. And rule number 4, never ignore me or my customer. So it goes back to rule number 1 and rule number 2 there. What can you do and what can't you do? And you've just got to be upfront, go back to the business and say, look, this is where we are. This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. And move on from there. No merger and acquisition has ever gone to plan in history.
I figured as much, but thank you so much for sharing your rules, because again, a lot of people who I work with or who I'm talking to, they are afraid of, okay, what if something goes south? And again, it's nothing goes perfect, nothing goes smoothly. I've never had an event I held where we didn't had at least one last minute adjustments in some way or another. Like even at the last event I did, I was like, okay, everything is going. We're good. We're actually good. We have snacks. We have food. Everything is spilled. We don't have much technique, so everything is working for a change now. And then I look at one of my roll ups, and I look and I realize there's a spelling mistake. Right on this big roll up that has the main flagship program I'm going to sell on this program. And just look at them like, just let it go. Can't change it now. But I agree. I think a lot of the times we try to make it perfect, and then we focus so much on the plan that we lose the flexibility that we need to adjust along the way, because plans are the things we do before something happens, and there's always something happening.
I think that it was Admiral Nelson, that said that battle plans work up until the first shot is fired.
Yes.
So, yes. But there's something that I do want to add in there. You've got to stick your hand up. If something goes wrong, your fault, whatever, stick your hand up and say it and let people know, because then things can adjust. If the more time you've got, the more acknowledgement, then you can adjust things and make things work. I was working for this organization and I spoke with an engineer and I said, don't do that. 5 minutes later, guess what happened? He did that. Whole environment went down, whole organization went down. Spent the next hour and a half getting it back up and running. Went in and had a conversation with the change manager. He said, did such and such do this? Who did this? I said, it's my fault. I said, I'm responsible for this. He said, no. He said, you can't take responsibility for this. I said, it's my project. I said, my fault. I'm fully accountable, my fault. He said, did such and such do this? I said, yes, but he works for me. And the guy said, well, you can't take accountability for his mistakes. And I said, well, what am I here for then? I'm here to protect my people. I'm here to look after the business and get it across. I said, my project, I'm fully responsible for it. I said, he screws up. I said, it's my fault. This change manager did not understand that logic at all. And his approach is an approach of fear for the organization from the start. It gives them no leeway to mess up at all, and no leeway to put their hands up and say, hey, that was me. And that's just wrong on all levels. If you do something wrong, put your hand up, get the business support behind you, and move forward. And then you can move forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be nowhere.
Yes. Yeah, it's I've I've had this happen so many times when I spoke with some leaders, and they're not leaders, they're bosses in organizations where they just lead with fear, and no mistakes are allowed. And there's an amazing, I mean, it's very, very difficult to read, but from Buckminster Fuller. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's yeah, the engineer, and he described in one of his books the way we deal with failures is that we try to avoid them rather than encourage them, because then people would learn from them more. It starts with school, goes over to how we how ships are built, essentially. Not just built, but how ships go through the ocean because of the kybernetic, where they go a bit left, they go a bit right, they go a bit left, they go a bit right, but it follows the path until you succeed. And it wouldn't be if it was just go straight, because all the things that are happening would just drive it and slowly drift it away. And I think for a lot of leaders, this is where the big challenge is coming from, because maybe they want to lead like you did it, because it's my team, it's my project, it's my responsibility, which I agree. But they can't, because of the environment they're in, of the culture they developed inside the company. If you merge a company, if you want to build it, how do you change this culture?
Oh, I knew this question was coming, didn't I? Okay, I've got a perfect one for you here. What is a tendency to happen is when a company is absorbed into what's known as the mothership, when it's absorbed, they tend to call it, the original name inside the new organization. And I'm constantly at people, language is important. If you refer to it as their original company name, they're not going to feel part of the team. They're not going to feel part of the new organization. Therefore, now they're feeling isolated and it's an us and them approach. So the first thing is to change the name, change the way that you address these people and this organization. And most often, if it's a distributed organization, you'll refer to it by the site name. So instead of using the old name, just refer to it as the site name and try and bring it on board. But you've got to get that old name out of the language of the corporate environment as soon as possible, because that is going to constantly reinforce that these people are not part, and there you go, I say people, these people are not part of your organization, part of your business, and they are. And if they're not treated as such, they will leave, and that will be costly to all. So, no, that's how I approach it. Changing the language straight off the bat is every time I hear it, and I don't care who says it, be it CEO right the way down, correcting it. And it might initially start off as the former. You change it to the former. At least that gets it in their mind. Then you change it to, okay, whatever the site name is. But you've got to get that out of their language, out of the culture of the organization as fast as possible.
Yes.
Do you agree?
I agree, in the especially because language is the window we have to how we feel and to our inner belief systems. If somebody tells me, for example, we must, I must do this, I'm gonna ask us who's forcing you? Because you must do nothing. When it comes to leading the people inside the organization, when it comes to, okay, we developing now to this area, it comes down to this, we're going to change this, names changing, branding obviously, and everything else, but there's also a cultural shift inside the company that is shifting, I assume, because you have the old people still working there, you have new people coming in to higher numbers and higher frequency. Things change.
I think you got it right. You used the right word there, and that is branding. As soon as you get that, as quickly as you can get the branding out, the better. Because once they see it, they've got the new uniforms and they've got the new logos around, and you've got to celebrate that. It's got to be a party. There's got to be cake. Definitely got to be cake involved with that. And I quite often buy cakes because you want to celebrate the wins, you want to celebrate the milestones. So yes, got to be cake, there's got to be celebrations, and depending on the sites, balloons, whatever, but a celebration to make sure that welcome, we're all here. And you've got to have a fair number of the C-suite out there doing site visits, doing just PR, shaking a few hands. Hi, I'm such and such. I'm the head of such and such, just to make sure that they feel relevant. They feel part of the team. That's really important. Yeah. This entire conversation has been about people, and it's been about sales, because you've got to go out there, you've got to sell it. I spoke of the real estate at the beginning of this conversation, and I spoke about a person that I was being mentored by. He taught me another saying, which I'm happy to share, and that is, how do you sell something? You make it easy to buy.
Mm.
And you're always selling something. You're selling something to your boss, you're selling something to your subordinates, you're selling something to your son, your wife, everybody. You're always selling something. So how do you sell something? You make it easy to buy, and you always got to figure out how you can make your project easy to buy, your business easy to buy. And cake is a good way of doing it.
bakeries are running right now to some mergers and
Well,
acquisitions. Like, hey,
you're from Bavaria. I mean, you've got the best in the world there, haven't you? Best cakes ever.
yeah, we are very blessed in Germany with that. So I can tell. Um, so when it comes now to sales, and this is maybe like the last topic we're going to talk about, but everybody who's listening until this point, first off, please leave us a 5-star review and follow us. But also, um, it is about sales and it's about people and it's a people's business. What are your say ways of selling that maybe someone hasn't heard yet? Because there's like obviously there's like techniques like objection handling and how you can present your offer and yada yada yada, and it comes down again to building relationships and genuine relationships. um, but what is your approach on selling? What makes you maybe different from other salespeople you've witnessed in your life?
Well, that's easy, Lucas. I'm afraid of sales. It terrifies me. But that isn't the full answer to your question because I just said we're always selling things, didn't I? So your approach of finding the needs. I love telling stories. I love talking with people and learning about them and understanding about them. And I will never have a conversation without a story somewhere in there. It just doesn't happen. That's how I communicate. That's how I relate to people. And when you talk about language before, I failed English all the way through high school. I've never passed English at school. Not once. Failed it all the way through. And yet, I've got #1 Amazon bestseller, and none of my English teachers ever did. But anyway, life's like that. So I tend to walk into a boardroom, as an example. And I'm from Australia, top right corner of Australia, the Cape of Australia, top part of it, it's far north Queensland. There's special people up there, really special people. They're a bit slower, they talk a bit slower, everything's relaxed back there. So I'll walk into a boardroom and to hefty discussions going on, and I'll say, look, I said, just keep in mind, you're going to have to talk a bit slowly for me. I'm from far north Queensland and I'm not very smart. So you're going to have to dumb things down and talk slowly for me. And that always gets the laugh, Lucas. That breaks the ice. Now we can get down to conversation. It's that first 7 seconds, isn't it, with sales? It's getting the ice, breaking that ice, becoming relatable, and letting people know who you are, being authentic. And yeah, I've told them already. I've told them the story of where I'm from, haven't I? So they know something about me, and they know how to communicate with me already. That's the start of it, really. Don't talk if you're doing sales. Never talk to anybody over the age of 12. They're always got to be at that same language of 12 and below. Did that help? Did that answer the question? I know I said I'm afraid of sales.
I think the last sentence you just said should be in every sales book, because the concept of not just be relatable and just talk to people like you would talk to people and be authentic about it, but especially not over the age of 12. Just dumb it down, make it easy again, make it simple. Maybe not easy, but simple to follow. And I truly believe that the best teachers are the ones who can take a very complex topic and just bring it down over and over and over and over again until everybody can understand it, even though if they have no touch points with it beforehand. And I was telling the story yesterday. I was in a sales training, which I was a co-trainer, and it was the second day of 3 days, and there were like 20 people, and we always do, like, in the morning we do a recap and answer all the questions that might have popped up after the seminar when you like sit in your bed, covered in your like but what did they mean about it? So they don't have any open loops. And one woman raised her hand and was like, maybe it's because I'm dumb, but what exactly is a sales funnel and a lead? And she was doing business for like, I don't know, 15 years. And this is the amazing thing about good seminars with a good environment. Everybody was like, no, that's not dumb. That's a really good question, especially if we're in a sales seminar and you don't feel you know the terms. And the funniest thing was, 20 people, 3 other people were just like, oh yeah, thank God she's asking this question.
Yes, absolutely.
So again, bring it back and simplify it in a way people can follow, and then you can slowly build over and over and over and over again.
Don't be the smartest person in the room, Lucas. Never be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to want to talk to you, nobody's going to be involved with you, and you're not going to be able to bring people with you, not going to be able to communicate with them. So yeah, you can't be. And again, that's why I often tell that story, because it just it's positioning of who I am and where I'm coming from.
We need a program for that. That's one thing. And I
genuinely do that.
Because I think a lot of people are thriving to be better storytellers. We do this in my programs on, how you can authentically tell stories, and you find the stories in your life, which for a lot of people, I mean, I grew up in Paderborn in Germany. I didn't have stories before I was a teenager because nothing happened in my life, I thought. And then, you get perspective and, oh, okay, this didn't happen to other people, and this is interesting, and this doesn't have to be interesting, but it can be entertaining and all the things. So I think storytelling is an art that should be crafted, and you are an excellent storyteller. So as a little treat to finish this podcast, what is the story you want to share that you maybe haven't shared in a while?
Story I haven't shared in a while. I don't like telling personal stories too much, really, but I was I was talking with my son earlier today, and I was telling him about a situation where I caused an absolute disaster. So I'm going to tell you this one. I was in the IT industry. Oh, this was my first merger and acquisition. It really was perfect. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't even recall what I was doing. 2 o'clock in the morning in the office. Yeah, these things happen. But anyway, I clicked delete, and when you log on to a computer in a corporate environment, you log on to the network. I deleted the network. It might say ABC Corporation, whatever it is. I deleted ABC Corp. Wrong button, just deleted it. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm on the phone to the CIO and said, oops, all hands on deck. We just lost all the users, all the printers, every resource in the organization. It was just insanity having to go through, because it's not very often that any idiot goes and does this. So looking up all the research on how to restore it and get it all working again was just crazy. Got the business back and working by about 8 in the morning. But it was one of those times, instant flowing with sweat from the panic of it. Yeah. So there's probably a story that I don't want to tell again. And don't really want to get let out in the world that this incompetent pressed the wrong button and deleted the entire organization.
Don't worry, Craig. It's not going to happen.
Have you got a better question than that, Lucas? One that's going to be less embarrassing?
We're gonna finish with another one, but don't worry, this will never happen again, Craig. We have a program for that.
We're going to edit that bit, aren't we?
Absolutely not. But I give you the last. But I give you the last question, because obviously this podcast will be the greatest podcast of all time, because we thrive to nothing less. If you could share one message to the audience where if they maybe understand this, if they just change this perspective, whatever it is, what is the one message you want to share?
I'm going to contradict myself in this. I always grew up believing that everybody should study physics and law. I think that they're two of the most important things that everybody uses every day, whether they realize it or not. But now, I think that everybody should study sales. Everybody needs to study sales because they do use that every single day. And it is what is going to take them to the next level and the level after that and the level after that. So sales is the number one thing that people should be upskilling on and not being afraid of. And it's the thing that is going to change your life. It's the thing that's going to change your children's life. It's the generational change. Don't be afraid. Get out there, learn it, put yourself in a situation where you have to do it and get over yourself and get a coach.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. If the people want to follow you, if the people want to learn more about what you do, how you do it, merger and acquisitions, where can they follow you? What should they do?
LinkedIn is the best way to go. And I'm sure Lukas will provide the details for that. I always respond and we'll get back to you quickly on LinkedIn.
Amazing. So yeah, if you want to follow Craig, and which I highly recommend, you can just click the link down below or in the video description. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review because we really appreciate it. And I have the feeling we're going to see Craig one more time, at least in this podcast, because it's been absolute delight. Thank you so much for your time.
Excellent, because I've got another story for you.
Can't wait.
We've got a program for that.
We got a program for that. See you, listen to you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.